Okay, I'm going to demonstrate how to get up and running quickly with a new Pro Tools session for a podcast creation project. This is made for a specific group of people, but I'm being a little generic to make this appropriate for the wider YouTube community. Okay, so before we begin, if you're using Dropbox, if your project folder is in a Dropbox folder, I would quit Dropbox first thing. Pro Tools is going to touch and modify slightly some files within that project folder. And if you have Dropbox open, it's just going to continuously sync that slightly modified file to the cloud. And if that's shared with other people, everyone's computer is just going to constantly be resyncing that folder as you're working, which is just a waste of bandwidth and CPU of everyone you're collaborating with. So just exit Dropbox before you open Pro Tools. And then when you're done with Pro Tools, save it, quit Pro Tools, and then start Dropbox again, and it'll sync your changes. It is important to keep in mind that if there's any chance you and somebody else would be working on the same file at the same time, make a copy. Otherwise, Dropbox is going to create a conflicted copy when it realizes that somebody else synced a different, somebody else updated the file while you were offline, basically. Or if somebody, if on the other hand, you don't exit Dropbox and you start working on the file, Dropbox can't modify that file because Pro Tools has it locked because it's currently open. So it's going to create a conflicted copy, which just makes things a little bit more unclear. So, like I said, if you're going to be working on a session file at the same time as somebody else, just make your own copy and put your name in it, and then just communicate so you don't work on the same file at the same time. Before you get started with Pro Tools, have all your audio interface, external monitor, all your USB stuff, have that all connected ahead of time before you open Pro Tools. Historically, Pro Tools has not been the most stable software, especially when you're, in my experience, like unplugging and plugging in devices. You want to have everything set, plugged in, configured before launching Pro Tools. Pro Tools is the last step. Okay, so I'm going to create a new project. I'm using Pro Tools 12. This has changed slightly for newer versions. Okay, so really the main thing I want to talk about here is sample rate. If you are using source material with mostly all the same sample rate, I would start your project with that sample rate of your source material to minimize the amount of conversion. If you have a completely mixed group of files of different sample rates, then you can select whatever your final destination delivery sample rate is, which will have some conversion happening. But I mean, that's going to happen anyway because you have a mixed bag of sample rates. The reason, if it's all the same sample rate, like let's say your delivery is in 48K, but all your materials in 44.1K, this will avoid all the converting every file. Let's say you have hours of source material. If you choose a different sample rate than where it is recorded, it's going to convert all that, which will waste hard drive space and take some time when you're importing it for it to do that conversion. It's just not necessary. But if you keep it in the same sample rate as your source material, then when you're done, you can just export it at a different sample rate, and it'll just convert, the final, which maybe 10 minutes out of that hour's worth of material that you're actually using. You'll just have to make a sample rate conversion for that. Okay, so I'm going to create a session. So, by the way, this will actually create a folder. It's a little misleading, save as type. So when I create this, it's going to make a folder. Okay, so I wanted to just go over a few preferences. If you go to preferences, first of all, processing, I believe it's default. Make sure your sample rate conversion quality is set to Tweakhead. Modern computers are fast. Always use Tweakhead the slowest. It doesn't really matter. This was more of a thing 20 years ago when computers were not as fast. People wanted to speed things up by making things lower quality. But you should understand what this means. Automatically copy files on import. So if this is not selected and there's no sample rate conversion happening, it's going to leave your source files where they are. It's not going to copy it into your project folder, which may or may not be what you want, especially if it's in a shared folder such as Dropbox. So, but on the other hand, if you have this selected, you're going to use more hard drive space because it's going to copy it into your project folder / audio files. If your sample rate needs to be converted, it's going to create a new copy of those files anywhere at the new sample rate in your audio files folder. So it doesn't really matter then. And that's all I really wanted to say in this video. Thanks.